Thank you very much. I was sitting outside a pub about 3 weeks ago, enjoying a pint in the warm summer air, and a young man was ushered out the pub by the barman, and the barman said, "You've had enough to drink, S," and S accepted this and wandered down into the town. Came back a while later. I later realised because the off-licence and the supermarket were both closed due to licensing laws, and he asked me to go in and buy him a pint. He was not falling about. He was a middle-class young man. He was early 20s. He was clearly well educated, but he was desperate to have more alcohol. And he said, "What's the problem? I give you €6. You go in, you spend €5, and you keep one for yourself. What's the problem?" And so I said no, and because the barman had said he'd had enough to drink. So that's my first case example. Second one is a young man who is more normalised. He's a part of a group of people who drink a lot, and his concern is he's a bit of a lightweight in the group. He can't quite keep up with them, and they'll go for prinks, pre-drinks, and they will have, easily a naggin of vodka each in the flat, and then they'll go out and they'll have 10 or 12 pints, and they might have more afterwards. And if you add it all up, they're drinking a bottle of spirits or more in an evening. This is now endemic in our country, even among very young drinkers. And this, to me, is one of the greatest challenges for the mental health of our country. It's an unrecognised source of enormous pathology in mental health. Now, can I just ask you this? How many of you in this audience know someone who drinks too much? Could you put up your hand if you do? Yeah. So thank you very much. You're in the company of 72%, according to the HRB survey, 72% of the Irish population knows someone who drinks too much, and 4 out of 10 of them, that person is a member of their immediate family. 4 out of 10, that person is a member of their immediate family. That means there are 1 million people in Ireland, 1 million people, worried about the alcohol consumption of someone very close to them. I hope that Essie's family were concerned about him. This is the boy I saw coming out. He was a boy coming out the pub. I hope they were concerned about them, because they should be, because he was facing into a future of enormous challenge to his mental health. So, in 1979, I started the first alcohol education course for young offenders in Britain. It was in Scotland. It was in the Dundee area. And the local sheriff, who is the Scottish name for a circuit judge, was concerned about young men coming before him who were getting into trouble, real trouble, because of drinking too much. So he asked me, would I put together an alcohol education course? So these poor young men had to attend in 6 bleak January, February evenings in the town halls of Brechin and Arbroath, and listen. And I would get them to calculate teach them about alcohol, discuss alcohol with them. It was like getting blood from a stone, I have to say. But they had a manual, and they could keep a drink diary, and they could calculate based on their body weight how much they drank and over what period they drank. They could calculate what their blood alcohol level would have been in any one drinking session. And then there was a table that we looked at that mapped blood alcohol levels against behaviours and feelings. So, for instance, 40 milligrams percent, begin to feel relaxed, increased chance of accidents. 80 milligrams, feelings of warmth and well-being, some loss of inhibition and self-control, driving much worse. 150 milligrams percent, silly and befuddled, speech slurred, maybe aggressive. 300 milligrams percent, unconsciousness possible. 400, unconsciousness likely, occasionally death. 500 milligrams death possible, 600 milligrams death probable. Now, there was one, this was not a free-flowing psychotherapy group. These were young men from hard backgrounds and rather didn't want to be there, and so I was delighted when Douglas, not his real name, who had sat hunched on not saying anything for the entire course, suddenly looked like he wanted to say something. So I said, "Yes, Douglas," I said brightly. And he looked down at his manual that I'd given him, he says, "According to your charts, I was deed twice on Saturday." And so that was a sobering. So why would I want to make you laugh about this true story when talking about a problem which is a silent epidemic blighting the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in this country? I want to make you laugh because the funny, enjoyable aspects of drinking alcohol are every bit as real a phenomenon as is the palpable misery. I enjoy drinking alcohol. According to the World Health Organization definitions, I sometimes binge drink. Binge drinking, I see some of you looking shocked. Binge drinking, but according to the WHO definitions, means drinking more than 6 small glasses of wine or 3 pints of Guinness on one occasion, or 3 pints of any drink on one occasion, any beer. I defy people who go into pubs that occasionally to say they occasionally have not have taken more than that, and I have. So I have binged drunk on occasions, according to that definition. And I could have come here and hidden and lecture you in a moralistic way about the terrible evils of alcohol and how we should all, you should all drink less. But this is not about you, and it's not about a small group of alcoholics. This is about us. This is about all of us. And this is about addressing a problem about which we are in a bit of national denial. And I must say I was extremely impressed by Minister Leo Varadkar, quoted as saying in the Dáil that the problem of alcohol is not a small minority of people who abuse alcohol in this country, it's the majority of people abuse alcohol. And I have to accept that on some occasions I have abused alcohol, according to WHO definitions. So, I think that kind of honesty about it is an essential step towards raising the awareness and dealing with this problem. I consider myself to be a moderate drinker. Now, the current guidelines are that you should drink, if you're a man, you should drink 17 units of alcohol per week, Irish units, and 11 maximum if you're a woman. Now, Irish units are bigger than British ones, so the equivalent figures in Britain are 21 and 14. Ireland is a world leader in drinking alcohol. It's number 10 in the world. The men who drink in Ireland drink an average of 19.8 litres of pure alcohol per year. The women who drink in Ireland, an average of just under 10. But that male-female difference is eroding steadily because young women are drinking more and more, and liver cirrhosis rates among young women are mushrooming as a result. And liver cirrhosis is a ghastly disease. Ghastly. So, no wonder I am feeling under pressure about keeping myself a moderate drinker, 17 units a week on average, because everyone around me is drinking like a fish. Well, not everyone, but many, many people are drinking like fish. So let me come back to the young man I started with, Mr. S, who was ushered out the pub by a very responsible barman who was doing what pubs are good at, which is regulating this enjoyable but dangerous activity. There were several other older men and women in that pub who probably were alcoholics, probably are. I'm sure they drink at levels that Sir Winston Churchill drank at. Now, there are some people who can function as functioning alcoholics for many years, but there are many casualties along the way. Winston Churchill used to start off the day with brandy. He would drink champagne. He was constantly topped up. Only occasionally did his behaviour show signs of the kind of behaviour we associate with too much drinking. Roosevelt once commented he was a bit alarmed by, Churchill's demeanour. And the thing is about alcohol, if you drink an awful lot, you develop one of the key features of dependence on alcohol, which is tolerance. Tolerance means you need more and more to have the same effect, to a point where you can tolerate huge amounts. And people will say, he's not an alcoholic, or she's not an alcoholic, because she can walk, or he can walk and talk and do his job. Why do you say he's an alcoholic? Alcoholic's someone who's drinking in the gutter, who's falling about drunk. That's not the case. Alcohol can affect people in all sorts of different ways, and people can keep functioning. But it's time to consider that the costs, this is about mental health this session, the costs of alcohol, there's an awful lot of very unrecognised consequences. People think that I'll feel in the short term that alcohol cheers them up, and it kind of does. It makes them less anxious, it's an anxiolytic, but in the long, medium term, it increases depression enormously. A lot of depression is caused by people drinking too much alcohol because of the effects of alcohol on the brain. And similarly, the anxiety that some people experience and which they drink to counter is actually caused by withdrawal symptoms from the alcohol. So you get into the addictive cycle. And the trouble is, an awful lot of people may go and seek treatment for depression and be given treatment for depression when actually the primary cause is the fact that they're drinking too much alcohol. Alcohol is a greater problem, much, much greater problem than heroin in this country. Alcohol poisoning and alcoholism kill 3 people a day, which is twice as many people as commit suicide. So 1,000 people a year in Ireland die directly of alcohol, and only it's about a terrible number, 500 commit suicide. Half of suicides, alcohol is a major factor in the suicide. So, and we have this epidemic of young people drinking, like the second case I give you today, who are making themselves vulnerable to these awful mental health problems: depression, anxiety, suicide. And of course, accidents and injury, the awful cases we've heard of in Australia recently, all alcohol related. So I'm going to, I just need to check my time here. Okay, I've got 1:46 left. I just want to finish off by talking about relationships. Relationships are the canary in the mine, I believe, of alcohol dependence. You can have people functioning at work, you can have them functioning socially, because once you start to drink a lot, your brain adapts to that. But also something called the reward network of your brain starts to be hijacked by the desire for drinking alcohol. And what that means is that other ordinary pleasures in life, to do with relationships, to do with hobbies, to do with going for a walk, start to feel grey in comparison. And so you then start to seek out groups of people who drink like you in order to make it feel normal. And what that tends to do, it's very much risks alienating the people in your family who start to feel as if rightly that they're a lower priority because of the way that alcohol has hijacked the reward network in your brain. So very often you can have someone whose friends and colleagues think, oh, he or she is a great guy or a great girl, look, she's functioning well, but actually back home, all is not well. And alcohol problems, to have an alcoholic father or mother is one of the greatest sources of lifelong mental anguish for a child. It disables people psychologically making them requiring lots and lots of therapy. It's a fundamental problem that they have. And I think we all have to accept that, yes, alcohol is part of our culture here. We enjoy drinking. It's part of the crack. We're not going to be moralistic about it, but every single one of us has to know how much we are drinking, day by day and week by week, and not push it under the carpet. That simple step towards awareness will help us reduce our drinking, and if we all reduce our drinking, we will reduce the drinking of the youngsters who are following on with terrible habits developing. The French reduced their alcohol consumption between 1980 and 2009. The French reduced it by 37%. And all the problems associated with alcohol, including liver cirrhosis and alcoholism, declined in proportion to that reduction in consumption. In the same period, Irish consumption went up by 20%, and it's continuing to climb. Now, fortunately, we have a government and a Minister of Health who has prioritised this, and there's a bill going to be enacted in the autumn, I think, which will at least bring in minimum unit pricing of alcohol. The British government in Westminster failed to do that because of the lobbying pressures of the drinks industry. The Scottish government did. So I'm delighted that this essential step towards reducing some of the consumption is taking place. The one the government couldn't take was banning sports sponsorship of alcohol. The French really hit the advertising of alcohol, and it worked. They've got much less of this terrible source of mental health problem now in France than they had before. Ireland has made a very good step towards that, but we really have to stop sports sponsorship of alcohol sponsorship of sports, because that's our young. You then are having 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 8-year-olds with alcohol on their lips, alcohol insinuated into their minds, and all the glamour of sport becoming associated with the false glamour of drinking a bottle of spirits in a night, which is what some of our 15 and 16-year-olds are doing. Thank you very much.